progress in the shop, and the last time we'll see this place for 10 days. Let's get a walk around. So anthracite here, new front brake rotors. The other ones hadn't really worn at all with my new calipers for measuring brake rotors. They had as much material as the new ones do, so I was reticent to replace them, though we had checked everything else. New rotors and no more shakes under braking from any speed. Nice and smooth at all speeds, under light brake load to no brake load. So that's a good sign. We have a bad sign though. Right side diff output flange is a touch damp. So that means the diff needs to come back out, get resealed again. Those things are a real bear to put in. So Gary and Mike will be doing that while I am gone starting tomorrow. After that, this car gets one more quick little wipe down, just a little bit dusty from sitting in here, and then it is ready to be delivered to the customer. Our E60 sits and chills, same thing with the F10. It'll need to get cleaned up. Taking my car back tonight. It's out front and clean. I worked on that today. Red car is awaiting a few small items, and then it's ready to go. Sepang has a transmission. It has a manual transmission installed now. Torqued up in the back, new hardware. I think the shifter carrier is in and clicked up into place. I'm looking in the camera lens now just because I can't really see it. So lots of progress there. DME hasn't gone in yet. That'll be happening probably tomorrow. The other 06, the Canadian, we're just going to call this the Canadian M5, is just waiting for us to have time to get it up on a lift. And really, we need to get that one down. I don't want to tie up 2 lifts with manual conversions and then have someone need lift service, and we can't do it. Lots to do on Toledo, lots to do on the Black Sapphire car while I'm gone. As I mentioned last week, all of these parts are ready to be installed. Okay, so I had a request to talk about plastics and what I saw in Ohio versus what I see here. And obviously I've seen a lot more E39 M5s out here in California and from California than I did in Ohio. All my friends had them, but here people send them to me and I see them all the time for work. There are differences to how these cars wear and age here versus there. So negatives about Ohio: we have a ton of rain, a ton of snow. That means a ton of salt, really bad roads, huge holes in the winter. They usually get to fix stuff right around October, right before they start to salt and bring out the snow plows again. So we see major rust, chassis, body damage associated with that. We see suspensions in much worse condition just because they deal with a lot harsher environment. Those would be the negatives of the Ohio cars. The positives are the paint's in better shape. We don't get stuff like this in Ohio very often. Now, you can tell when you see a car that has a lot of that, it came from Phoenix or something, but native Ohio cars will not see nearly as much clear coat, failure, paint fade. This is supposed to be not gloss black, but a very deep matte black. It's pretty much gray now. We don't see as much of that just because we have no sun in Ohio. Ohio cars don't get as much of this. You know, all of the plastics and rubbers on the outside of the car, the sun really takes a toll on that. So what does the sun screw up? Clear coat, paint. If you do not have tint, it's going to just destroy the headrests. They get so hard sometimes that the leather shrinks and then the stitching busts apart, holding the leather on the headrest, and that sucks. The rear deck, it just bakes the glue, it bakes all those plastics. You try to take out the rear deck to do struts, and these little covers, like this gray cover here, those things just disintegrate. The plastic turns to dust once you move it or touch it. So those are things we see on California cars. We see limited to 0 body corrosion, no rust, which is great. So here's an 02 530 that has been fairly well cared for, though not religiously, and it's perfect. There's not a spot of rust in there, just because it's probably only been rained on, 100 times in its whole life versus 220 times in a year. That's a big difference. Same thing goes for the leather. Ohio cars, if they've made any attempts to take care of the leather, it's going to be softer. It'll be a little bit more supple, which is why I'm a huge proponent of tint. If you don't like the look, fine, get a light tint, but get a tint to keep that UV light out of the cabin, off of the Alcantara, the leather, the plastics, the rubbers, just everything in the car. You're better off to have tint. And windshield too, you gotta do it. Something E39 specific seems to be clear coat fade on these door handles. And when I moved here and got my car here, like right before I moved, I had my nearly perfect condition, pretty much perfect condition. There's no clear coat failure. I had my door handles filmed and wrapped with a clear material to prevent that, because I hate that. It's a pet peeve of mine. I don't like it. I do have a little bit of clear coat failure, not failure yet. It's like in the right lighting, it looks scratched. on my trunk lid lip spoiler. So one day I will repaint that, probably with the rest of the car. I don't think I'd go out of my way to film that. I'm gonna ceramic coat it, which has some UV protective properties, I believe. In terms of interior plastics, the cluster bezels, it doesn't matter where you are, that plastic turns to dust, it disintegrates. Mine did 10 years ago on my E39. I replaced it then. If I took it apart today, I think it would still be okay. But I do have another one in the box just because those went NLA for a while and then they came back, so they made another batch. I don't want to deal with that. I bought one, I store it here in my office. I have a lot of parts locked, double locked in this office. So don't get any ideas. I've got the leather, you guys don't know about that. I've got a lot of cool stuff in here that will go in my car eventually. Stuff that you can't get right now, maybe you won't be able to get in the future, just parts I know I'm gonna want. And I kind of look at it as an investment. If I don't have the car anymore or my priorities change or whatever, these parts will certainly be worth more than what I paid for them in the future. Headlight adjusters are gonna fail on any car. It doesn't matter if it's hot, cold, wet, dry. We see that all the time. And then another thing I'll mention here is tires don't seem to last nearly as long here. It's a thing in Arizona, super hot roads, and a little bit of that, not quite as much here in California. The hot roads, warm roads don't treat tires as well. If the car's parked outside, gets a lot of sun and heat on the sidewall, you start to see that rubber start to degrade after time. In Ohio, tires don't really mind moisture. They don't really mind snow. So you probably get a better tire life in Ohio. Same thing with a battery. I think batteries work better in cooler climates than they do hotter climates. So we see those kind of components last longer too, but I could still get 5 years out of a battery here if you're remotely kind to it at all. So not the end of the world. I don't know what the hell they're doing over here. It's crazy loud. They have a crane up there. It's getting dark and chilly. It looks like they're packing things up for the night. So am I. I gotta get home. I gotta pack tonight. I gotta take a shower. Larissa's gonna pick me up. We're gonna go back to her place tonight, eat dinner. I'm gonna spend the night over there. And then tomorrow we get up, jump on a plane, head to San Francisco and eastbound from there. I'm gonna wrap up today here. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Travel day. Good night.